Something broke that afternoon. Not visibly, not loudly, but the kind of breaking that rewrites futures before anyone realizes what was lost. It happened in a public place. Polished floors, designer storefronts, golden light filtering through glass ceilings. The kind of space where people shop for things they don't need and believe safety comes from price tags. Progress didn't slow that day, it stopped. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. A hand closed around a throat in front of dozens of witnesses. A pregnant body pressed against cold marble, breath stolen in seconds, and the crowd, dressed in cashmere and carrying bags with logos stitched in gold, turned away. Not because they didn't see, because intervention requires courage, and luxury doesn't teach that. What almost disappeared wasn't money. It wasn't reputation, wasn't even a life, though that hung in the balance too. It was something quieter, a future that depended on one person staying conscious long enough to survive the next 30 seconds. A child who would either enter the world or vanish before taking a first breath. A system built on protection that failed the moment it mattered most. No one in that mall understood what they were watching. They saw a conflict, a disturbance, something uncomfortable that security would handle. They didn't see the invisible line between before and after. The moment where everything that came next hinged on whether one hand tightened or released, whether one person's silence would be mistaken for submission, whether power would arrive in time or too late. The cameras caught it all, every angle, every second. And the footage would be reviewed later by investigators who would note timestamps and catalogue evidence. But footage doesn't capture what was actually at stake. It doesn't show the heartbeat that stuttered, the oxygen that thinned, the instinct that screamed for help from a body that couldn't make sound. It doesn't show the choice that was made in those seconds, not by the victim, by the one who should have been watching. Somewhere in that mall, between the Chanel storefront and the Dior display, a decision was made that no one else witnessed. A calculation that weighed risk against image, strategy against instinct, a hesitation that would haunt everyone involved. Because when you build your life on control, on calculated moves and measured responses, spontaneity becomes your greatest enemy. And sometimes the right move is the one that makes no sense. The hand released, the body slumped. The crowd pretended they'd seen nothing, and the person who should have acted immediately, who had the power, the resources, the authority to end it in seconds, stood frozen. Not from fear, from something worse. From the paralysis that comes when you realize the system you built to protect the people you love has a flaw you never accounted for. Vulnerability in public spaces. Attacks that don't wait for backup. Threats that move faster than phone calls to security teams. That afternoon, in a mall in New Jersey, something fundamental changed. Not in the laws, not in the policies, not in the visible structures that people point to and call safety. In the invisible ones. The assumptions we make about who's protected and why. The belief that wealth equals security. That silence equals weakness. That love can be measured by what you prevent instead of what you endure. No alarms went off. No headlines ran that night. Just another incident in a public place, another disturbance handled quietly, another moment that would be forgotten by everyone except the people who lived it, and one person who would spend the rest of his life wondering what he should have done differently. Because the truth is this: you can own buildings, control accounts, command respect from people who fear your name, but you can't rewind 30 seconds. You can't undo the moment you hesitated, and you can't protect someone from the past when it shows up in broad daylight and wraps its hands around their throat. If one hand had tightened half an inch longer, the future would have been rewritten, and no one watching would have understood what was missing. Kieran Vale lives in a penthouse that touches clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Manhattan. Central Park sprawls below like a green wound in the concrete. The furniture is Italian, the art is original, the silence is expensive. He moves through the space carefully, one hand resting on the curve of his stomach. 7 months. The doctors say everything is progressing well. Weight gain on target. Heartbeat strong, no complications. He wears soft fabrics now, cashmere sweaters from Bergdorf Goodman, linen pants that stretch, nothing tight, nothing restrictive. His tablet sits on the marble counter, screen dark. He uses it to communicate, always has. Since childhood, when the voice that should have developed simply didn't. And the medical term is selective mutism, but that implies choice. Kieran didn't choose silence, it chose him. Caspian Arden doesn't arrive home until after 8. He never does. The elevator opens directly into the penthouse, private access, keyed to his fingerprint and retinal scan. He's still wearing the Tom Ford suit from this morning, black, perfectly tailored. The Rolex on his wrist catches light as he sets his briefcase down. "How was your day?" Caspian asks. Kieran reaches for his tablet. Types. Quiet. Yours? Productive. That's the word Caspian uses when he doesn't want to discuss details. Productive means deals closed, money moved, problems eliminated. Kieran knows what his husband does. Not all of it. Not the specifics. But enough. Caspian Arden is the CEO of Arden Dynamics. Publicly, and it's a tech investment firm with offices in Manhattan, Boston, and San Francisco. Privately, it's something else. A network that stretches through New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't make headlines. Not mafia in the traditional sense. No violence for its own sake. No drugs. No trafficking. Just influence. The ability to make things happen, or stop them from happening. Kieran met him 4 years ago, not at a gala, not through business. In a hospital in Massachusetts, where Kieran was recovering from injuries he'd never fully explained, and Caspian was visiting a colleague. Caspian noticed him first, noticed the way Kieran moved. Careful, controlled, like someone who'd learned to make himself small. They didn't speak that day. Kieran couldn't. Caspian didn't push, but he came back, every day for 2 weeks. And just sitting, reading, existing in the same space. On the 15th day, Kieran typed a message on his phone and showed it to him. "Why do you keep coming back?" Caspian looked at him for a long moment. "Because you're the first person I've met who doesn't need me to fill the silence." That's how it started. Not with promises, not with protection, with presence. Now, 4 years later, Kieran stands in a penthouse that costs more per month than most people earn in a year. He wears a ring that was custom-made by Tiffany & Company. He has security that follows him everywhere. Discreet, professional, invisible until needed. He should feel safe. He does feel safe. Most days, but safety is a feeling, not a fact. And feelings don't stop hands from closing around throats. Caspian moves to the kitchen, pours 2 glasses of water, brings one to Kieran. "Our doctor's appointment tomorrow?" he asks. Kieran nods. "I'll drive you." Kieran types, "You don't have to." "I want to." That's the difference between Caspian and others. He doesn't do things out of obligation, he does them because he chooses to. Control, yes. But chosen control. The kind Kieran can walk away from if he needs to. Except he doesn't need to. Because this life, this space, this relationship, is the first place he's ever felt like more than a collection of vulnerabilities. Caspian's phone buzzes. He glances at it. His expression doesn't change, but something in his posture does. "I need to make a call," he says. Kieran nods. Caspian walks to his office, closes the door. Kieran stands at the window, looking out at the city, lights stretching endlessly, lives layered on top of lives. Years before, the hands that hurt instead years before. The hands that hurt instead of held. The alpha who used silence as a weapon, who mocked him for not being able to scream. They don't see Calder Knox. Kieran's hand moves to his throat. An old habit. Checking that it's still his own, that no one else is touching it. The apartment is quiet, secure. The security system is state-of-the-art. Cameras on every entrance, guards in the lobby, panic buttons in every room. Everything works. The marriage works. The protection works. It's been 4 years since he left Massachusetts, since he disappeared from his old life and built this new one. 4 years since Calder Knox last saw him. 4 years of believing distance equals safety. Kieran presses his palm against the glass, feels the cold seep through. Somewhere out there, the city hums with a million lives that don't touch his. And no one had a backup. Kieran can't remember the first time he tried to speak. He was 3, maybe 4. His mother said his mouth would open, his lips would form shapes, but no sound came out. Doctors ran tests, examined his vocal cords, found nothing physically wrong. Psychological, they said. Trauma-induced, they suggested. Selective mutism, they diagnosed. But that word, selective, made it sound like a choice. Like he was withholding something. Like he could speak if he just tried harder. He couldn't. And the more people pushed, the more the silence hardened into something permanent. By the time he was 7, everyone stopped asking. By the time he was 12, they stopped expecting. By the time he was 16, silence wasn't a condition anymore. It was his identity. Kieran learned early that people treat silence like an invitation. They fill it with their own assumptions, their own projections. Some people are kind, patient. Others see it as weakness, an opening. Calder Knox saw it as opportunity. They met when Kieran was 19, at a community event in Florida, where Kieran was volunteering and Calder was networking. Calder was older, established, an alpha with a real estate business and a reputation for getting what he wanted. He was charming at first, attentive. He learned sign language to communicate with Kieran. Bought him a tablet so he could type out longer thoughts. Told him his silence was beautiful, peaceful. For the first time in his life, Kieran felt seen, not in spite of his silence, because of it. That should have been the warning. Calder didn't fall in love with Kieran. He fell in love with the idea of someone who couldn't talk back. The control came slowly, not violent at first, just present. Calder made decisions, where they went, who they saw, what Kieran wore. "You don't need to worry about these things," Calder would say. "I'll handle it." And Kieran, who'd spent his whole life being told he was a burden, believed it was care. It wasn't. It was ownership. The first time Calder hurt him, it was in public. A restaurant in Miami. Expensive, full of people. Kieran had typed something on his tablet, a small disagreement, nothing major. Calder read it, smiled, then reached across the table and closed his hand around Kieran's wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. And they turn away and tell themselves it's 100%. They turn away and tell themselves it's not their business. That pattern repeated for 2 years. Small hurts in public places, bigger ones in private. Calder never hit him where it would show. Never left marks that couldn't be explained. And Kieran couldn't scream for help. Couldn't call for someone to intervene. Couldn't even whisper no. All he had were his hands, his tablet. His desperate silent attempts to communicate that this wasn't okay. But Calder learned to take those away too. The tablet would disappear during arguments. His phone would be locked in a drawer. Calder would hold his wrists so he couldn't sign. And Kieran would be trapped in his own silence. The night he left, Kieran didn't plan it. He just walked out. Calder was asleep. The door was unlocked. Kieran grabbed a jacket, his tablet, and nothing else. He walked 3 miles to a bus station, bought a ticket north with cash he'd been hiding for months, and disappeared. It took him to Massachusetts, to a shelter that didn't ask questions, to social workers who helped him file paperwork under a new name, to a hospital where he met a man who didn't need him to explain. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of rebuilding, of learning that silence doesn't equal submission, that protection doesn't have to hurt, that love can exist without control. Kieran stands in the bathroom now, in the penthouse that feels nothing like the apartment in Florida. He looks at himself in the mirror, and 7 months pregnant, married, safe. Except there's a boundary that shouldn't exist, a limit that no amount of money or security can cross. His body, his silence, his inability to call for help when he needs it most. That's where reality refuses to cooperate. In the seconds between threat and rescue. In the gap between seeing danger and being able to name it. Caspian can protect him from financial threats, legal threats, people who want to leverage his connection to the Arden name, but he can't protect him from the past. Not when the past shows up in public and knows exactly where to press. Kieran's hand moves to his throat again. An unconscious gesture. A memory written in muscle. He thinks about Calder, about the way his fingers would dig in just enough, about the way he'd smile while doing it, about the fact that for 2 years Kieran's silence was a weapon used against him, and now it's just who he is. Permanent, unchangeable, a vulnerability that no amount of security can eliminate. Every known solution failed for the same reason. The Westfield Garden State Plaza doesn't look like a place where futures break. It looks like luxury. Glass and steel, marble floors polished to mirrors, storefronts that glow with warm light. Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Hermes. Kieran didn't want to come here, but his doctor's office is nearby, and Caspian had a meeting in Jersey City that ran late. So Kieran sits on a bench outside the Chanel boutique, watching people move through the space with shopping bags and purpose. His security is here, two men in plain clothes, one near the escalator, one by the fountain, Caspian insisted. And Kieran agreed because it's easier than arguing without words. The pregnancy makes him slower, more careful. His center of gravity shifted weeks ago. He moves like someone carrying something precious. Because he is. The baby kicks, small movements, flutter soft. Kieran rests his hand over the spot, smiles. He's scrolling through his phone when the air changes, not temperature, not sound, something older, instinct. He looks up and sees Calder Knox walking toward him. Time doesn't stop, but everything else does. Kieran's breath, his heartbeat. The world narrows to tunnel vision. Calder looks the same, older maybe, but the same sharp jaw, the same confident stride, the same smile that used to feel like safety before Kieran learned what it actually meant. Predatory. Calder stops 3 feet away. Kieran, he says, like they're old friends. Like he didn't spend 2 years turning love into a cage. Kieran's hand moves to his tablet. Calder moves faster. His hand closes around Kieran's throat. Not hard, not yet. Just enough pressure to make a point. Thought you could disappear? Calder's voice is low, conversational, like they're discussing weather. Kieran's back hits marble, cold, unforgiving. His hands come up, clawing, pushing. But Calder is bigger, stronger, an alpha who knows exactly how much pressure stops breath without leaving marks. People walk past. A woman in Prada glances over, looks away. A teenager with headphones doesn't even notice. Security is 20 feet away. But they're watching the entrances. Not the benches. Not Kieran. The grip tightens. Kieran's vision blurs at the edges. His lungs scream. His hands scrabble uselessly against Calder's wrist. The baby. That's the only thought. Not himself, not pain. The baby. Calder leans closer. You think that billionaire can protect you forever? Kieran can't answer, can't breathe, can't scream. He never could. That's the limit, the boundary that shouldn't exist but does. His silence is absolute, involuntary, permanent. Even now, with death pressing against his windpipe, no sound comes. Just desperate, useless gasping. The mall keeps moving, keeps shopping, keeps pretending nothing is happening, because that's what people do. They see, and they turn away. Kieran's peripheral vision darkens. His hands go weak. This is it. This is how it ends. In public, in luxury, in a place that promised safety through price tags and security cameras. Then the air shifts again, not instinct this time, presence. Calder's hand doesn't loosen. But his expression changes. Fear flickers across his face. Kieran can't turn his head, can't see what Calder sees. But he knows. Caspian. The hand releases, abruptly, completely. Kieran collapses against the bench, gasping, one hand on his throat, the other on his stomach. The baby kicks again, smaller this time, like a question. Caspian doesn't run, doesn't shout. He walks forward, slowly, deliberately. He's still wearing the suit from this morning. Black Tom Ford, perfectly pressed. The Rolex catches mall lighting. He looks calm, controlled, terrifying. He stops 2 feet from Calder, doesn't touch him, doesn't need to. Remove your hand, Caspian says. His voice is quiet, conversational, absolute. Calder laughs, tries to. Or what? Caspian's eyes flicker to Kieran, to the hand pressed protectively over his stomach, to the raw red marks already forming on his throat. His scent changes, not cologne, not anything artificial, something deeper. Alpha rage, controlled, leashed, but present. You're assaulting my pregnant spouse in public, Caspian says, on camera. Calder hesitates. That's the crack, the first sign that this won't go the way he planned. Caspian doesn't raise his voice, doesn't gesture, he just tilts his head slightly. A subtle movement, and two men step into view. Not the security guards Kieran knows, different ones, sharper, colder. They don't wear uniforms, just well-tailored suits. Brooks Brothers. Understated, but their presence is unmistakable. Enforcers. Calder's confidence wavers. He looks at Kieran, at Caspian, at the men now flanking them. "This isn't over," he says. Caspian steps closer, close enough that only Calder can hear. "It ended the moment you touched him." His voice is still quiet, still controlled. But there's something underneath it now. Promise, not threat. Certainty. Calder backs away, tries to look casual, fails. He turns, walks toward the exit, disappears into the crowd. Caspian doesn't watch him go. He crouches in front of Kieran. His hands hover, not touching, asking permission. Kieran nods. Caspian's fingers brush gently against his jaw, tilt his face up, check his eyes, his breathing. The marks on his throat. "Are you hurt?" he asks quietly. Kieran shakes his head, then stops, nods, then stops again. Because he doesn't know. His throat hurts, his head is spinning, his heart is racing, but the baby is still moving. That's what matters. Caspian's jaw tightens, his hands ball into fists, then deliberately unclench. "We're leaving," he says. Kieran nods. Caspian helps him stand, keeps one arm around him, steady, supporting. The security team closes in. Not aggressive, just present. They walk through the mall together, past the stores, past the people who didn't intervene, past the woman in Prada who looked away. No one stops them, no one asks if they're okay. The crowd pretends nothing happened, and Caspian says nothing. He doesn't explode, doesn't demand justice, doesn't make a scene. He just walks Kieran out. Calm, controlled, silent. But Kieran feels it. The rage underneath, the thing Caspian is holding back, not for lack of power, for fear of what he'll do if he releases it. They reach the parking garage. The Tesla is parked in a private section. Caspian opens the passenger door, helps Kieran inside, buckles the seatbelt carefully around his stomach. Then he walks around to the driver's side, sits, grips the steering wheel, doesn't start the car, just sits there, breathing, thinking, making calculations Kieran can't see. And Kieran realizes something. Caspian didn't hesitate because he was scared. He hesitated because he was deciding. Between what he wanted to do and what he should do. Between instinct and control. Continuing meant accepting visible failure. The penthouse is too quiet when they return. Caspian helps Kieran inside, doesn't speak, doesn't ask questions, just guides him to the couch, brings water, a blanket. Sits nearby but doesn't crowd. Kieran drinks slowly, his throat aches, swallowing hurts. He reaches for his tablet. "I'm okay." Caspian looks at him, really looks, at the bruises forming on his throat, the way Kieran's hands are still shaking, and the protective curve of his body around his stomach. "No," Caspian says quietly, "you're not." Kieran types again. "The baby's fine. That's what matters. You both matter." Kieran's eyes burn. He looks away. Caspian stands, walks to the window, stares out at the city like it holds answers. "I should have been there," he says. Kieran types, "You were." "I should have been there sooner." "You came." "Not fast enough." Kieran sets the tablet down, crosses the room, stands next to Caspian, touches his arm. Caspian looks down at him. His expression is fractured, torn between rage and something softer. "I wanted to kill him," Caspian says quietly, "right there, in front of everyone." Kieran nods. He knows. "But I couldn't." Caspian's voice drops. "Because if I did, they'd take me away. And then who protects you?" Kieran types on his phone this time. Holds it up. "You protected me by not becoming him." Caspian's jaw works. He doesn't respond. Because he doesn't believe it. He believes in action. Results. Visible solutions. Restraint feels like failure. His phone buzzes. He ignores it. It buzzes again. He pulls it out, glances at the screen. His expression hardens. "Security sent the footage," he says. Kieran's stomach tightens. Caspian opens the video, watches. Kieran can't see the screen, but he sees Caspian's face, the way his jaw clenches, the way his hands go white-knuckled, the way he watches himself arrive too late. "I was 20 feet away," Caspian says. 20 feet, and I didn't see him until—" He stops. Doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. Kieran touches his arm again, squeezes gently. Caspian closes the video, sets the phone down. "I'm going to fix this," he says. To Kieran types, "How?" "I don't know yet." That's the truth Caspian doesn't want to admit. For the first time in years, he doesn't have a solution. No amount of money stops a hand from closing. No amount of security prevents someone from walking up in broad daylight. No amount of power rewinds time. All he has is aftermath and the knowledge that he hesitated. That's the failure loop. Attempt. Be present. Be vigilant. Hope. Kieran stays safe. Collapse. The past doesn't care about security systems. Caspian walks to his office, closes the door. Kieran sits on the couch, one hand on his stomach, the other on his throat. He knows what Caspian is doing. Making calls, pulling strings, finding leverage, trying to solve this the way he solves everything, with control. But some things can't be controlled. And some threats don't respond to money or influence, they respond to violence. And Caspian just chose not to use it. Kieran's phone buzzes, unknown number. He stares at it. Doesn't want to open it. Opens it anyway. Unknown. "You looked so scared today. I missed that look." Kieran's blood goes cold. Another message. Unknown. Does he know? About the first time you got pregnant? About what I made you do? Kieran drops the phone. His hands are shaking. His breath comes too fast. Because that's the secret he never told anyone. Not the doctors, not the social workers, not Caspian. There was a first pregnancy, 3 years ago. Calder's. It didn't survive, not naturally. Calder made sure of that. Kieran's vision blurs. He can't breathe, can't think. The baby kicks, hard this time, like a reminder. This one is different. This one is safe. Except it's not. Because Calder knows where he lives now, knows who he married, knows exactly how to hurt him. Not through violence, through exposure. Through the one thing Kieran can't defend against, his past. In the office, Caspian is on the phone. His voice is low, controlled, giving instructions to people who don't question. "I want every piece of information on Calder Knox, financial records, travel history, known associates, everything." Pause. "I don't care if it takes all night. I want it by morning." He hangs up, stares at his desk, at the photo frame next to his laptop. Kieran, smiling, taken 6 months ago before the pregnancy started showing. Happy, safe. That's what Caspian promised him. Safety, and today he failed to deliver. His phone rings. He answers. "We have a problem," Imani says. Imani is his head of security. Efficient, ruthless when necessary. "What kind of problem?" Caspian asks. Calder Knox filed a police report. Claims Kieran owes him money, that you threatened him in the mall. Caspian's vision goes red. He what? It's a counter-move. He's flipping the narrative, making himself the victim. "That's impossible. We have footage." Footage that shows you approaching him with armed men. Without context, it looks like intimidation. Caspian's hand tightens on the phone. "So what do we do?" "We need a lawyer, and we need Kieran to give a statement." Caspian closes his eyes. He can't. What? He can't give a statement. He doesn't speak. Then written testimony. About what? That his abusive ex-alpha assaulted him in public, and I chose to walk away instead of handling it? Silence. "Boss," Imani says carefully, "you did the right thing." "Did I?" "Yes." "Then why does it feel like I lost?" Imani doesn't answer, because she doesn't have one. Caspian hangs up, sits in the dark, and realizes the truth. He can freeze Calder's accounts, destroy his credit, make him disappear from every database. But none of that stops the narrative. None of that erases what happened. None of that fixes the fact that Kieran was hurt while Caspian stood 20 feet away and calculated risk. That's the failure. Not the restraint, the hesitation. The moment between seeing the threat and acting on it. The space where doubt lives. At this point, success would no longer look like success. The bank account empties at 3:47 a.m. Not Kieran's, not Caspian's, Calder Knox's. Every account, every investment, every line of credit, frozen, not seized, not flagged, just inaccessible. Calder wakes up to error messages, declined transactions, automated emails from institutions that no longer recognize his access codes. By 6 a.m., his phone is ringing. Lawyers, accountants, business partners who suddenly can't reach the funds they thought were secure. By 8 a.m., his reputation is circulating through private channels. Unreliable, unstable, a risk. By noon, his name is toxic. No violence, no threats, no visible hand, just systematic dismantling. Caspian doesn't make the calls himself. He doesn't need to. He has people who specialize in making problems disappear without leaving fingerprints. Financial pressure applied precisely, carefully, legally. That's power. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that erases. Kieran sits at the kitchen counter, scrolling through news on his tablet. And he doesn't know about the accounts yet. Caspian hasn't told him, because Caspian is handling it. The way he handles everything. With control. His phone buzzes. Imani. Knox's assets are locked. He'll be scrambling by tonight. Caspian reads the message, doesn't smile, doesn't feel satisfaction. Just checks it off mentally. Step 1, remove resources. Step 2, remove credibility. Step 3, remove options. He's done this before, not often, but enough to know the pattern. You don't destroy someone by attacking them directly. You destroy them by removing the systems that keep them functional. No money, no allies, no leverage, just isolation. And time. But something feels wrong. Caspian can't name it. Can't pinpoint the source, just a sense that this is too easy. Calder Knox spent 2 years controlling Kieran, manipulating him, and using his silence as a weapon. That kind of person doesn't fold after one financial hit. They adapt. Caspian's phone rings. Unknown number, he answers. Silence, then Calder's voice. "You think you're clever," Calder says. Caspian's jaw tightens. "How did you get this number?" "I know a lot of things, Arden, including what Kieran never told you. If you contact him again, I don't need to contact him. I already sent what I needed to send." The line goes dead. Caspian stares at his phone, then walks quickly to the living room. Kieran is still at the counter, still scrolling, but his hands are shaking. "Kieran." Kieran doesn't look up. Caspian walks closer, sees the screen. It's a message, sent from an unknown number. Photos attached. Caspian doesn't need to see them to know what they are. Private, intimate, from years ago. Before Caspian. Before safety. Evidence of a past Kieran never wanted anyone to see. "When did this arrive?" Caspian asks quietly. Kieran types, "An hour ago." "Why didn't you tell me?" Kieran's hands hover over the keyboard, then stop. Because what's there to say? That his past is being weaponized? That no amount of security stops someone from sending a text? That shame doesn't require physical presence to destroy. Caspian sits down next to him. Doesn't touch the tablet. Doesn't ask to see the photos. "He's trying to hurt you," Caspian says. Kieran nods. "It won't work." Kieran types, "It already did." And that's the truth Caspian doesn't want to face. He can freeze accounts. He can destroy reputations. He can make Calder Knox disappear from every professional circle, but he can't erase the photos. Can't undo the fact that Kieran's past exists. I can't protect him from the weapon of exposure. That's the limit. Not money, not power, privacy. Once it's gone, you can't get it back. Caspian's phone buzzes again. Another message, this time to his phone. "Unknown, check your email. I sent you something interesting." Caspian opens his email. One new message. No subject line. A video file. He clicks it. The footage is grainy, old, from a security camera in what looks like a clinic. Kieran is on the screen. Younger, thinner, visibly pregnant. Calder is next to him. Hand on his shoulder, leaning close. The timestamp says 3 years ago. Caspian's blood goes cold, because Kieran never mentioned this. Never said there was a first pregnancy. Never said what happened to it. The video plays. Kieran walks into an exam room. Calder doesn't follow, just stands in the hallway, watching. 20 minutes later, Kieran comes out. He's crying, silently, shoulders shaking. Calder puts his arm around him, walks him out. The video ends. Caspian stares at the screen. His mind is racing, calculating, trying to understand. Why Kieran never told him. What Calder is trying to prove by sending this. What the point of the exposure is. Then it clicks. Calder isn't trying to hurt Kieran, he's trying to hurt Caspian. By showing him that there are things he doesn't know. Secrets Kieran kept. Moments Calder was part of that Caspian wasn't. It's psychological warfare, not aimed at the victim. At the protector, making him doubt, making him question whether he really knows the person he's protecting. Whether the trust is real. Caspian closes the email, looks at Kieran. Kieran's eyes are closed. His hand is pressed over his stomach. There was a first pregnancy, Caspian says quietly. Kieran's eyes open, fill with tears. He nods. What happened? Kieran reaches for his tablet. Types slowly. Calder made me get rid of it. Said I wasn't ready. That omegas like me shouldn't have children. Caspian's vision blurs, not from tears, from rage, pure, absolute, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that dismantles worlds. I'm sorry, Caspian says. Kieran shakes his head. Types, I should have told you. You don't owe me your trauma. I thought you'd see me differently. I don't. Kieran looks at him, searching. I see you exactly the same, Caspian says. Someone who survived something no one should have to survive. Kieran's tears spill over. Caspian pulls him close, carefully, gently, and holds him while he cries. Silent sobs, the kind Kieran has perfected over years. The kind no one hears but everyone feels. Outside, the city moves, oblivious. And Calder Knox sits in his apartment, watching his life collapse, and smiles. Because he just planted the one seed that money can't remove. Doubt. Which created a new problem no one knew how to solve. The law office in Lower Manhattan smells like leather and old paper. Kieran sits in a chair that costs more than most people's rent, hands folded in his lap, tablet on the table in front of him. Caspian is next to him, silent, watchful. Across the table sits Mariah Chen, one of the best defense attorneys in New York. Sharp eyes, sharper mind. She's reviewing the footage from the mall, the police report Calder filed, the counter-evidence Caspian's team collected. This is messy, Mariah says finally. Can you fix it? Caspian asks. Define fix. Make the charges go away. Mariah sets her pen down. The charges against you? Easy. You didn't threaten him. You de-escalated. The footage proves that. Then what's the problem? The problem is what happens next. Mariah looks at Kieran. Calder Knox is building a narrative. He's painting himself as a victim of intimidation, you as the aggressor, and Kieran as someone caught in the middle. Kieran's hands tighten. He's going to claim harassment, Mariah continues, stalking, emotional distress. He's going to say you're using your wealth and influence to destroy him because he had a relationship with your spouse. He assaulted him, Caspian says, in public, with witnesses who didn't intervene. That complicates things. How? Because if no one helped, it suggests the threat wasn't obvious. Past abuse, medical records if Kieran has past abuse. Medical records if Kieran has them. Kieran types on his tablet. I don't. Mariah nods. Then we build the case on pattern of behavior. We show that Calder Knox has a history of control and manipulation. How long will that take? Caspian asks. Weeks, maybe months. We don't have months. Then we settle. Absolutely not. Mariah leans back. Caspian, I understand you want justice, but justice takes time, and time is something pregnant omegas don't have a lot of. Kieran's hand moves to his stomach. 7 months, maybe 8 weeks left. 8 weeks of looking over his shoulder, of wondering when Calder will show up again, of carrying stress that could trigger early labor. The doctor's words echo in his head. Stress at this stage can be dangerous. Caspian stands, walks to the window. There has to be another way, he says. There is, Mariah says, but you're not going to like it. Tell me. You let him win. Caspian turns. What? You let him think he's won. You don't file charges. You don't freeze his accounts. You back off. Publicly. And then? And then you handle it privately. Caspian's eyes narrow. You're suggesting... I'm not suggesting anything. Mariah's voice is firm. I'm telling you what the legal system can and cannot do. It can protect you from charges. It can issue restraining orders. It cannot make someone disappear. I know people who can. I'm sure you do, and I'm sure they're very good at what they do. But if you use them, and it comes back to you, Kieran loses everything, including you. Silence. Mariah gathers her files. Think about it. Call me when you decide. She leaves. Caspian and Kieran sit in the empty office. She's right, Kieran types. Caspian doesn't respond. You can't fix this with money, Kieran continues, or power, or connections. Then how do I fix it? Kieran looks at him. Types slowly. You don't. I do. Caspian's expression shifts. No. He wants me. Not you. I'm not letting you anywhere near him. Then this never ends. Caspian walks over, crouches in front of Kieran. Listen to me, he says quietly. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what it costs. I will not let him hurt you again. Kieran's eyes fill. Types. He already did. And that's the truth neither of them wants to face. The hurt isn't just physical. It's psychological. The knowledge that no matter what Caspian does, Calder can reach them. Through messages, through photos, through the past that refuses to stay buried. That's the real weapon. Not violence, memory. They leave the office. Outside, the city is bright, loud, indifferent. Caspian's phone buzzes. Imani. Knox filed for a restraining order against you, claims you're stalking him. Caspian stares at the message, then types back. Noted. He doesn't tell Kieran. Because what's the point? Calder is playing a game Caspian doesn't know how to win. Every move Caspian makes, Calder counters. Every attempt to protect, Calder twists into aggression. Every resource Caspian has, Calder uses against him. That's the failure loop. Attempt, legal action, hope, justice, collapse. The system protects the aggressor. They get into the Tesla. I'd drive in silence. Kieran stares out the window, watching the city pass, thinking about the clinic, the video, the first pregnancy he never wanted and the second one he does. The difference between then and now. Then he had no choice. Now he has too many. All of them impossible. His phone buzzes. He looks. Unknown. You know what's funny? Arden thinks he can save you, but he can't even save himself. Kieran deletes the message. But the words stay. At this point, success would no longer look like success. The headlines run 3 days later. Billionaire CEO accused of intimidation campaign against former partner of spouse. Caspian Arden under investigation for alleged harassment. Tech mogul's dark side, abuse of power or protection. The articles are careful, neutral. They present both sides, but the implication is clear. And Caspian Arden, wealthy, connected, powerful, used his resources to target a man who had a past relationship with his spouse. No mention of assault, no mention of abuse, just former partner and alleged intimidation. The narrative is set. Caspian reads the articles in his office, doesn't react. Imani stands near the door. We can issue a statement. And say what? The truth. The truth is complicated. So is silence. Caspian sets his phone down. If we respond, we give it legitimacy. If we stay quiet, it fades. Or it gets worse. Caspian looks at her. What would you do? Imani hesitates. I'd burn his life to the ground. I already tried that. Then try harder. But that's the problem. Caspian has tried. He froze the accounts, destroyed the credit, turned allies into ghosts. And Calder just adapted. Used the destruction as evidence, played victim, won public sympathy. That's the thing about power. It's visible. And visibility makes you a target. Calder has nothing left to lose. Caspian has everything. That's the imbalance. At home, Kieran sits on the couch, reading the same articles. His hands shake. Not from fear. From guilt. Because this is his fault. If he'd never left Florida. If he'd never met Caspian. If he'd just stayed silent and invisible like he was supposed to, none of this would be happening. Caspian wouldn't be under investigation. His reputation wouldn't be at risk. their life wouldn't be unraveling. Kieran's tablet buzzes. He ignores it. It buzzes again. He looks. Unknown. You know how this ends, right? He loses everything. Because of you. Kieran drops the tablet, stands, walks to the bedroom, closes the door. He sits on the edge of the bed and makes a decision. When Caspian comes home, Kieran is waiting, tablet in hand, expression calm. Caspian knows that look. It's the look Kieran gets when he's made up his mind about something and won't be talked out of it. "What's wrong?" Caspian asks. Kieran types, "I'm leaving." Caspian's world stops. "What?" "Not forever, just for a while, until this is over." Kieran, "You're losing everything because of me." "I don't care." "I do." Caspian walks over, sits next to him. "Where would you go?" "Massachusetts, the shelter I stayed at before. They'll take me." "No. It's not your choice." "Like hell it's not." Kieran looks at him. Types slowly, "I can't watch you destroy yourself trying to protect me." "Then don't watch, but you're not leaving." "Why?" "Because I love you." The words hang in the air, simple, direct, true. Or Caspian doesn't say them often, doesn't need to. But he says them now because Kieran needs to hear them. Kieran's eyes fill. He types, "That's why I have to go." And Caspian realizes something. This isn't about fear. It's about sacrifice. Kieran thinks leaving will save him. That distance will erase the target. That walking away is the ultimate act of love. But he's wrong. Because love isn't distance, it's presence. Even when presence costs everything. "I'm not letting you go," Caspian says quietly. "You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do. And I'm choosing you." Kieran shakes his head. Types, "You're choosing guilt." "Maybe. But it's my guilt to carry." They sit in silence, two people trying to protect each other. Both convinced their way is right. Both wrong. Because protection isn't about distance or control, it's about trust. Oh, and neither of them has learned that yet. Caspian's phone rings. He ignores it. It rings again. He answers. "What?" Mariah's voice. "We have a problem." "Another one?" Calder Knox was just arrested. Caspian sits up straight. "For what?" "Extortion, blackmail, illegal surveillance. The FBI has been investigating him for weeks. They just moved." Caspian's mind races. "How?" "Anonymous tip. Someone sent them everything. Financial records, communications, the video he sent you, all of it." "Who?" "I don't know, but whoever it was knew exactly what they were doing." Caspian hangs up, looks at Kieran. Calder was arrested. Kieran's eyes widen. Types, "What?" "FBI. Charges include extortion and blackmail." "How?" "I don't know." But even as he says it, he knows. Someone else made the move he couldn't. Someone who saw the legal path and took it. Someone who understood that justice doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from patience and evidence. Kieran's phone buzzes. He looks. "Imani. You're welcome." Kieran shows Caspian. Caspian stares at the message, then calls Imani. "What did you do?" "My job." "Which was?" "Protecting you, both of you." "How long have you been working on this?" "Since the mall. You wanted to destroy him financially. I wanted to destroy him legally. Mine stuck." Caspian doesn't know whether to be angry or grateful. "Thank you," he says finally. "Don't thank me yet. The trial will be public. Messy. Kieran will have to testify." Caspian's stomach sinks. "How?" "Written testimony. The judge approved it." Caspian looks at Kieran. Kieran nods slowly. Because this is it. The real solution. Not revenge. Not distance. Testimony. Truth. Unspoken through silence. That solution failed for a reason no one had measured yet. The courtroom is smaller than Kieran expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, rows of benches that smell like dust and old decisions. Calder sits at the defense table, suit pressed, expression neutral. He doesn't look at Kieran. Kieran doesn't look at him either. He sits in the front row, Caspian beside him, tablet in his lap. The prosecutor, a woman named Ayana with kind eyes and a voice like steel, stands. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Kieran Vale to provide written testimony." The judge nods. Proceed. Kieran stands, walks to the witness stand. A bailiff brings a microphone, positions it near the tablet. Mr. Vale, Ayana says gently, you've submitted written testimony. Is everything in that document true to the best of your knowledge? Kieran nods. Please speak aloud for the record. Kieran's throat tightens. He can't. Ayana sees, adjusts. Your Honor, Mr. Vale is unable to speak due to a medical condition. He will respond via text-to-speech. The judge nods. Kieran types, yes. The tablet's voice reads it aloud. Flat, mechanical. Nothing like Kieran's actual voice would sound, if he had one. Can you describe your relationship with the defendant? Ayana asks. Kieran types slowly. We were together for 2 years. He was controlling. He hurt me. I left. The words appear on the screen. The voice reads them. Simple, direct. But they don't capture the weight. The years of silence used as a weapon. The hands that gripped too tight. The choices that weren't choices. Did the defendant ever physically harm you? Yes. Can you provide examples? Kieran's hands hover over the keyboard. Then he types. He would grab my throat when I disagreed. He broke my phone so I couldn't call for help. He forced me to terminate a pregnancy. The courtroom goes silent. Even the stenographer stops typing. Calder's lawyer stands. Objection. That last statement is unsubstantiated. It's testified under oath, Ayana counters. It's hearsay. The judge looks at Kieran. Mr. Vale, do you have evidence of this claim? Kieran nods. Types, medical records from the clinic. I can provide them. The judge nods. Objection overruled. Continue. Ayana pulls up the video, the one Calder sent to Caspian. Is this you in the footage? Kieran watches himself on the screen. Younger, thinner, crying. Yes. And this was taken without your consent? Yes. Did the defendant use this footage to threaten or manipulate you? Yes, he sent it to my husband to make him doubt me. The words hit the courtroom like stones. Ayana turns to the jury. The defendant didn't just abuse Mr. Vale physically. He weaponized his past, his trauma, his silence, and when Mr. Vale finally found safety, the defendant tried to destroy that too. Calder's lawyer stands again. Objection. Counsel is editorializing. Sustained. But the damage is done. The jury has seen the video, heard the testimony, watched Kieran type out his pain in flat mechanical syllables. They've seen what silence looks like when it's forced to speak. The cross-examination is brutal. Calder's lawyer tries to poke holes, tries to suggest Kieran is exaggerating. Or you could write, I was afraid. Of what? You could write, I was afraid. Of what? Of not being believed. And yet you married a billionaire shortly after leaving my client. Convenient timing. Kieran's hands shake. Caspian leans forward, jaw tight. Kieran types, I married someone who didn't use my silence against me. The lawyer pauses, changes tactics. Did you ever tell Mr. Arden about the first pregnancy? No. Why not? Because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what? Of not being strong enough to leave sooner. The courtroom is silent. The lawyer has no response, because there's no counter to that kind of honesty. The jury deliberates for 4 hours. When they return, the verdict is unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Calder is sentenced to 6 years, minimum. No parole for the first 3. The gavel falls. Kieran doesn't feel relief. He feels exhausted. Caspian takes his hand, squeezes gently. They leave the courtroom together. Outside, the air is cold. December in New York. The city wrapped in early darkness. It's over, Caspian says. Kieran nods, but he knows better. Trials end. Trauma doesn't. That night, back in the penthouse, Kieran sits by the window, one hand on his stomach. The baby is restless, kicking, like he knows something changed. Caspian sits next to him. How do you feel? He asks. Kieran types, empty. Not relieved? Not yet. Caspian nods. Understands, because justice doesn't erase the past, it just stops it from controlling the future. Kieran looks at him, types slowly. Thank you for not leaving. I never would. You thought about it. Caspian doesn't deny it. I thought about what was best for you. And I realized it's not what I decide, it's what you need. What do I need? You tell me, Kieran thinks, then types, I need to stop running. Okay, I need to stop being afraid of my own voice. You have a voice, you always have. Kieran smiles, small, sad. Types, not the kind people hear. Then we make them listen differently. And that's the shift, not fixing the silence, honoring it. The system survived, but not in the way anyone expected. 3 months later, Kieran stands in a private room at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. The contractions started 6 hours ago. Steady, manageable, until they weren't. Now he's gripping Caspian's hand hard enough to hurt. Breathing through pain that rewrites the body's understanding of endurance. The doctor, a calm woman named Dr. Okoye, checks the monitors. You're doing great, she says, almost there. Kieran can't respond, can't type, can't do anything except survive the next 60 seconds. Caspian leans close. I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. Kieran nods, squeezes harder. The baby is born at 4:32 a.m. Small, loud, perfect. Dr. Okoye places him on Kieran's chest, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. Kieran's tears come immediately, silent, unstoppable, not from pain, from relief. Because this baby, this life, was chosen. Wanted, protected. Not in spite of the past, but because of what the past taught him. That survival isn't weakness, it's foundation. Caspian cuts the cord, his hands are shaking. He's beautiful, Caspian whispers. Kieran nods. Grips it, tight, instinctive. That's when grips it, tight, instinctive. That's when Kieran understands this is what he was protecting all along, not himself. This moment, this choice, this future. 2 weeks later, they bring the baby home. The penthouse feels different now, smaller, fuller. There's a bassinet by the window, diapers stacked on the counter, bottles drying in the rack. Normal chaos, beautiful chaos. Caspian holds the baby while Kieran rests. He's a natural, patient, gentle. What should we name him? Caspian asks. Kieran reaches for his tablet. Types, Justice. Caspian looks at him. Really? Kieran nods. Not because of the trial, because of what justice actually means. Not revenge, not punishment. Balance. The restoration of what was taken. Caspian smiles. Justice Vale Arden. Kieran types, perfect. 1 month later, something unexpected happens. Caspian gets a call from a non-profit in Boston. They're organizing a fundraiser for domestic violence survivors. They want Kieran to speak. Not literally, but to share his story, his testimony, the way he uses technology to communicate, to show other survivors that silence doesn't mean powerless. Kieran stares at the invitation for a long time, then types to Caspian, I want to do it. You sure? Yes. Why? Because someone needs to hear that survival is possible. The event is held at a hotel in Boston. High profile, well attended. Kieran sits on stage, tablet in front of him, microphone positioned near the speaker. The moderator asks questions. Kieran types answers. The text-to-speech voice reads them aloud, flat, mechanical, but the words are his. How did you survive? The moderator asks. I found people who didn't need me to explain, who just believed me. What would you say to someone still in that situation? Your silence doesn't make you weak, it makes you strategic. And strategy wins. The audience is silent, not uncomfortable, respectful. After the panel, people approach. Survivors, advocates, people who've lived through variations of the same nightmare. They don't ask him to speak, they just thank him for showing up, for existing loudly in a body that can't make sound. That night, back in the hotel, Caspian asks, how do you feel? Kieran types, lighter. Good. I didn't think telling the story would help, but it did. Why? Because I'm not hiding anymore. Caspian pulls him close, kisses his forehead. You never had to. I know that now. 6 months later, Kieran and Caspian walk through the same New Jersey mall, past the Chanel store, past the bench where it happened. Justice is in a stroller, sleeping, unaware. No one recognizes them, no one stares. They're just another family, shopping, existing, moving through space without fear. Kieran stops near the bench, looks at it. Caspian sees, stops next to him. "You okay?" he asks. Kieran nods, types on his phone. This is where it almost ended. But it didn't. No, it didn't. They stand there for a moment, not reliving, just acknowledging. Then they keep walking, because that's healing, not forgetting, moving forward anyway. That's the lesson the story was always about. Not power, not revenge. The choice to stay when every instinct says run. And the courage to speak when you have no voice. The belief that silence can be strength instead of shame. Calder Knox is still in prison. He'll be there for years. The headlines faded, the investigation closed, life moved on. And Kieran learned something crucial. You don't need to be loud to be heard, you just need people willing to listen. Most people will never notice what changed. They'll see a family, a baby, a quiet Omega and his powerful husband. They won't see the years of rebuilding, the therapy sessions, the panic attacks that still come sometimes, the nights Kieran wakes up touching his throat. They won't see the work, just the result. And that's exactly why it will never break again. Because the foundation isn't built on perfection, it's built on truth. And truth doesn't need volume. It just needs witness. Kieran looks down at Justice. The baby's eyes are open now, looking up at him with that unfocused newborn stare, seeing nothing, seeing everything. Kieran smiles, and for the first time in his life, he doesn't wish he could speak. He's grateful for the silence, because it taught him something words never could. That love isn't about what you can say. It's about what you choose to stay for. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's inspire each other. See you in the next one.